Put down that chainsaw and listen to me. It's time for us to join in the Fragments of Silicon.
All right. Welcome to another installment of Fragments of Silicon. I'm your host, Adam. Joining me, as always, is the regular crew. Let's get to the news. Twilight, why don't you start us off this week?
All right. Well, after a weekend filled with a lot of rain that caused some flooding around the area I live in. Uh, I live in a high elevated area, so I didn't have to worry about it myself. But there were concerns about how it got about the roads and such. But at least around where I live, it's fine for the most part. But it did cause some damage elsewhere. But things seem to be okay for the most part. But anyway,
Okay.
let's see here. Let's see. Work's going fine. Just been slow since the weekend. Um, eh, Fine for the most part. But anyway, the most important thing is that this Saturday I've been scheduled for my first COVID-19 vaccine. So looking forward to that. Was hoping to be able to get it at the in the pharmacy in the store, but apparently it's not going to be available there. But the pharmacy across from work in the plaza there the local Walgreens will do just fine. I'm not traveling 25 miles to the hospital that has the Pfizer. But anyway, yeah, there's that, and let's see here. Me and Mac and Kira are continuing the our APB Reloaded um, sessions. The last one was interesting to say the least. And yeah, that's it for me.
All right. Gallus, why don't you go next?
My car's. I got my. I forget. I guess I might have had my brakes had been done by the last time we did, but after that, one of my tires has been. It's the one that's been a little bit leaky for a long time, but it may be increasing, so I may be working on getting new tires soon. But that's not. Hopefully, won't be too big of a problem. I'm gonna try and get some quotes, but also I got my blood drawn the other day for the lab tests that they need to do for the doctor. So I have a doctor's appointment next Monday, and hopefully I'll have a good checkup, and they'll tell me if there's anything I can do about my blood pressure and other concerns in the short term, so that I can maybe work on trying to do something about them in the long term without being like super anxious about it, because I've also been having some anxiety problems lately, and having some help with that would be nice. Uh, Not much else, I don't think, really, aside from what we're going to be talking
Eddie?
about, the topic of discussion.
Yes, sir.
So far things have been going well. I got all the stuff seemingly sorted out with SSI. So yay.
So you
Hmm?
so you don't owe them back pay.
No,
You don't owe them back pay?
I do not.
Good.
Now we're all
Good.
sounding like a bunch of old people with
Yeah.
these health problems and SSI and that
Yeah.
sort of thing.
I feel like an old person.
Also, Adam, you sound like you're a little bit far away from the mic.
Okay.
You are a bit faint, yes.
let me just adjust things. How about now?
Much better.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Sometimes that happens.
Yeah. And yeah, I also got
Anyway,
mm,
yeah, go on.
I got the first back pay check today, so I've been, looking at monitors and whatnot. So that's been
Right.
exciting.
Yeah. Hopefully, other computer upgrades as well.
It really depends, because I need to see about replacing my bed and
Mm,
possibly getting a desk to move my
Right.
computer out in the other room.
Well, don't forget, COVID aid is also probably going to happen this month.
Yeah. So I'm
Mhm.
also looking at all the computer parts sorted. Like, damn, this is the worst time to get this.
Yeah, I still need to do my taxes too.
But yeah, I think that's it from
Um,
me.
all right. I guess it's my go.
Yep.
I mean, I suppose the most profound thing that happened to me this week is my bathroom sink is not working properly.
Fun.
Um, uh, yeah, there's a lack of pressure. Like the water still runs. It's a little stream. So the plumber is coming in on Monday. I mean, outside of that, it's really like the weather got cold today, and that's nice because, well, being Florida, it hit March, and it's like, oh, time to go to the 80s. Like, so, yeah, though if people get colds, it'll be because this cold front is going to be lasting a week, and then it's going to go back to the 80s. Anyway. So that's about it for my bit of news. So merrily we shall roll along to the interview portion of the broadcast. And joining us this week are Lori and Corey Cole of Transolar Games.
Hello, people.
That would be Lori, and
Hello.
I'm Corey.
Right. So how are you two doing tonight?
Oh, we're doing super well. Actually, we're getting our first Pfizer vaccinations tomorrow, so we're looking forward to someday being able to go to the store without being in terror.
Yeah. Yeah. I would get a shot myself if the vaccine were available. Uh, I
Because they're getting
mean,
there.
that should be sorted out. Yeah, that should be sorted out by the next by May, I hear. Anyway, so how we like to start off things proper is we get to know the people behind the game, the studio, and whatnot, and we ask this particular question: what got you interested in video games on a personal and a professional level?
Well, we've been gamers our whole lives, which mostly meant board games and card games and stuff like that. And in college, I discovered the Plato system out of the University of Illinois, which was a computer assisted instruction system, and they had some amazing games on there. So that got me really interested in those. That was the game that eventually became Wizardry. Started on there, and quite a few commercial games that you know of had their origins in Plato. I'm sorry,
Right.
and
I,
yeah, yeah. Then we got into the other thing was Lori and I both got into Dungeons and Dragons uh, in the late '70s. Um, me because I was working in Chicago and I got into a group that was a spinoff out of Gary Gygax's original Wisconsin group. And then, as it happens, my work later took me to Minneapolis, so I got to meet Dave Arneson and all the D&D stuff. I still have Gygax's autograph and my original Greyhawk pamphlet. The booklet version of it. Uh, and Lori, why don't you talk about yours?
Yes, I got into it because, well, again, played games and loved science fiction and fantasy books, and basically wound up going to the World Con in Arizona because that's where I was living at the time, And my brother came to the thing and found the gaming area, which was where he spent the entire convention at, and learned how to play a variant on Dungeon and Dragons, which they called Arizona D&D, which was a experience based system rather than a level based system. And so that's where I started out. I really thought when I found Dungeon and Dragons that this was the game for me because it's a game that nobody loses. Everybody wins and you're working together to have a great time. So I never looked back to other games once I found Dungeon and Dragons.
And then we had in the late '80s, we had a friend who was doing some contract artwork. She was an animator for Sierra Online, and she approached us and said that her boss Ken Williams was looking for expert, published, tournament level, award winning or prize winning or whatever dungeon masters, and we all laughed at how that was completely non-existent thing. And then I said, wait a second, I'm all those things. I won a D&D game once at Gen Con when they had a prize for it, and we've run uh, dungeon mastered games at TimeCon, which is a gaming convention, Doctor Who convention, and I had a module of mine, the Tower of Indomitable Circumstance, published by Judges Guild. So I said, hey, we're every one of those things. And we talked to them, and they proceeded to hire me, not as a game developer, as a game designer, but as a programmer. Uh, and eventually that got our foot in the door, and we eventually got to make Heroes Quest, was our first game.
Oh, that was your first?
Yeah.
Yep. Before that, we were, running tabletop stuff. We're a bit unusual for the computer game industry because we were over 30 and had a baby in tow when we started at Sierra, whereas most people get into the game industry like right out of college or high school. So it's a bunch of 20-year-olds, and we had about 10 more years of life experience, and I think that made a difference in the kind of games we made.
Computer
I
games that
don't
we
doubt
were that at the time when we first got started were pretty lame, and they did not appeal to us as good games, and we thought we could do better, frankly, because we wanted to make them more like a Dungeon and Dragons kind of game than as a little monster crawl in the dungeon and kill things and no story. So it was mostly because we felt these things could be done better.
that's understandable, given the parameters of the time. It's like '80s computers were not really renowned for their large capacities. Let's say. I mean, I remember playing the gold box D&D games, and they had to stuff most of the story in the journal. You know, that was considered to be expansive storytelling. Like wizardry. The early wizardry games and Ultima were pretty bereft. So
Well, they were still a big step up. The first games I remember on the computer were the ones Temple of Apshai, and that one basically the game would give you a code. I think it was like a number or something. So it'd say like 237, and then you opened up the printed book that came with the game, and read paragraph 237 to find out what was there.
Yep.
So it really had, and that was like 8K memory or something. So we had the, immense luxury of 64K of heap, not megabytes, K, and 256K minimum computers when we started. So it felt like a luxury.
Yeah. To all our modern audience watchers, we're going to be dealing with file sizes that are almost unfathomably small in even 20 years ago parlance. Yeah, like not everything was like that. Like interactive fiction was, well, kind of its golden age there with like the Zorik series and whatnot. But yeah, overall, there was definitely room to expand and improve. Now, getting back to the focus here, now when you talk about Heroes Quest, you're talking about Quest for Glory, or are you actually talking about like the
Yes,
Heroes
yes,
Quest
the
that came
original,
before?
yeah, the original title for Quest for Glory, So You Want to Be a Hero, was Heroes Quest, So You Want to Be a Hero. And
Mhm.
Games Workshop of England and Milton Bradley, which was a U.S. licensee, objected to that because they had a board game called Advanced Hero Quest, and they had licensed out the rights to make a video game version of Advanced Hero Quest, and they felt that Heroes Quest was confusingly similar to that. And you could argue either way. By U.S. trademark law, then it was irrelevant because they didn't have a video game out yet. But apparently, under UK trademark law, they had pre-registered it, and so they owned it. So we changed the name.
Sounds
Sierra
pretty
changed the name
standard.
from Heroes Quest to Quest for Glory.
Yeah, like I don't know, I like Quest for Glory better as a title. Like, yeah, it's a bit more distinct.
Plus, it's
It's still
it's a
unfortunate.
little bit weirdly redundant if it's Quest for Glory, or Heroes Quest, just so you want to be a hero or whatever.
If you
Like,
say so. We like Heroes Quest, but
I don't think it's bad. It's just having hero in the title twice is a little weird.
ah,
yeah, I mean, I suppose it's all moot since it became for Quest for Glory.
well,
Um,
today
and
we would not want a game called Heroes Quest because putting any kind of I made that mistake. Our newest game is Hero Dash U colon Road to Redemption, and I discovered it's a really bad idea to have punctuation in a title if you want anybody able to find it on a search engine.
Yeah, some naming things and softwares and stuff don't like
yeah,
that.
yeah, Boolean operators, the scourge of search engines. Like, um, anyway, so I suppose getting back to Quest for Glory, for our audience who might not have played those games or were too young for them, um, what were the Quest for Glory games?
They were our attempt to make Dungeon and Dragons in a computer game. When we went to Sierra Online was began by creating graphic adventure games. That's what they were
Mhm.
famous for, and they had a great engine to create those. So when we got there, they wanted us to do a role playing game, but we said, let's use your engine to make a hybrid adventure role playing game that is much closer to the original Dungeon and Dragons. And so it was a very story driven adventure game with, real combat and character development.
Yeah, so I like to
Right.
say that back then you mentioned the low amounts of memory we had and people playing directly off floppy disks without even owning a hard disk and stuff like that. So
Hmm.
because of those restrictions, up until that point, games had of storytelling games had either been pure text adventure games that told stories well, but they didn't really have any uh, dramatic tension to them, or role playing games that had the character stats and progression and combat, but weren't very good at telling stories. And there really wasn't enough memory to do both at once. Uh, and so we were just at that generation at the 89 to 90 was the period when finally the computers had enough power that we could actually tell a story and have some action in it too.
Right. And if I'm recalling correctly, the Quest for Glory series was on the point and click Sierra engine. Like,
Well, it
like
originally
until
was on the parser type text entry type of field when we started out, and then it went. Every game we did 5 games in that series. Each game we progressed with the times and redesigned it so that it would, take advantage of everything we had learned, all the changes in computers, and to make it better.
fair enough. Um, Now, was it hard doing a role playing adventure hybrid with, a engine that was designed for pure adventure games?
Making any game is hard. I think that players don't give enough credit to how hard developers work in these things. Uh, so, we had a strong vision, and that helped a lot. Uh, but we were really, constantly fighting the limitations that we had. Uh, but I had extensive programming experience. I had over 10 years of programming experience before I started Sierra. So I was able to build a layer on top of their object oriented text adventure system and text and graphics adventures uh, to handle things like skill checks and, stats and, combat calculations and so on. To me, it was just basically manipulating some numbers. That was actually pretty easy. The hard part was, getting the stuff on the screen and getting the visuals to look good and the animation to work and fit in that little bit of memory. And we had very ambitious, plans for what we wanted to do the game. So that was actually harder than putting in the role playing stuff.
I mean, I'd
Our
imagine
limits were at the time,
some
so we were just designing beyond the normal capabilities of computers at the time.
right which were ever changing, especially since we're getting into the 90s, and you know the technology just constantly shifts over the course of the decade. I mean, just you think about where computer games were in 1990 and 2000, and it's just such a leap. Well, leaps, really.
Yeah,
You know,
I actually, in some senses, the 2000 games were a step backwards, and it took till about 2010 to get them right. But
Sure.
the big thing when we started out, our first two games, actually, as Lori mentioned, were typed input parser games, and we played some games with the parser to make it easier for players to do that. Like control keys, you click Control A, and that typed in Ask About for you. So that was something we wanted you to do a lot. But by 91, we were already, switching over to point and click, and we went from 16 color graphics, which are pretty primitive, to 256 colors. And the game started looking a heck of a lot better right around that time. Um, and it's
uh,
not a coincidence that those two changes happened at the same time, because the amount of memory that it took to handle the 256 color graphics didn't leave enough memory to have the parser in there. So they took out the parser and made things point and click. Uh, and then by 95 or so, world was starting to go to a very primitive 3D. So like Castle Wolfenstein 3D, and it was just really blocky. And they'd had 3D stuff. I mean, Wizardry, came out in what was it, early 80s, late 70s, something like that, and that was line drawing 3D. And then Dungeon Master was um, around early 80s, and that had actual, textures in the walls and stuff. So there was some 3D stuff even back then, but it really took until, I'd say the 2000s and really into 2005 to 2010 before 3D graphics started to look good.
yeah,
And
yeah. Moving a dimension is intensive,
yeah, the
and
computers had to get a lot faster. They had to have a lot more memory. I mean, now we look at a computer with, if we see a computer with 8 gigabytes of RAM, we say, oh, that's not enough. That's not good enough. Whereas our computers back when we started, had the best computers at the time at 640 kilobytes of memory. Uh, and
yeah,
the uh,
yeah.
and the 8086 architecture meant you could only access 64 kilobytes at a time. And people thought that was enough.
It's not said people thought that was enough. It was what was affordable at the time.
Well,
Yeah.
really, what is enough depends on what you're trying to do.
Right. I mean, the ambitions were always there. Just what was available in terms of for a microcomputer was infinitesimal. Though it's like memories of all sizes are so much like the biggest capacities I think of the early 80s were like 2 gigs, like the big mainframe computers. But it's just nobody was trying to do 3D graphics and photorealism. The designer was there, but the technology wasn't. It just
So
took
I
a few
think the
decades.
I think the thing that made our games different from what had come before is that we didn't know any of that. I mean, we knew how much memory is on a computer, but we had no idea whether that was a little or a lot. And we just said, okay, here's the story we're trying to tell, and here's what we want it to look like. And Lori had got a stealth education in computer game direction. Uh, she didn't know. I mean, that wasn't a field that existed when we were going to school, but she took art and animation classes, did sculpture and painting and so on. She took creative writing classes, uh, and then she married a programmer, and we were both gamers. And so we came in there to Sierra. Oh, and Lori taught school. Uh, so basically, she ticked off every single box of what it took to design and direct a game in the late 80s, early 90s without ever having really planned for it. So
That
we just
sounds
made
about that sounds about right for the era. Like,
Yeah, we had to. I mean,
no,
she had to do it all. So she was the lead game designer, but she was also the writer. Today you have a team of the game design staff and level designers and so on. And of course, level design is kind of a cross between design and art. And then you have writers, and you have system programmers and application programmers and animators. And typical AAA game now might have 500 people working on it. We had about I don't know, 8 or 10, I think, working on Heroes Quest, and even that felt like
yeah.
pretty big.
Well, I mean, that was big for the era. Once again, it's like some things are consistent, no matter how big the teams get. Um, and that is things got exponentially bigger with each generation. Like games of the late 90s required much more people than games of the early 90s because of that 3D shift. Speaking of which, if I'm recalling correctly, the Quest for Glory 5 was 3D. How big of a headache was that?
Massive. Do you want to talk about that, Lori?
Yes, Corey was working for another company for most of that. Basically, Sierra had moved up north. It was in this little town of Oakhurst, which is where we lived, and the more corporate offices had moved north. And there was just this one division that was down here back at where we lived, and they had no, IP. They had no game or game developers there at the time, but they wanted to have something. And well, we had long since left Sierra because they basically broke our contract before because they didn't want to make any more Quest for Glories. But the division was there, had nothing better to do, so they decided, oh yeah, let's do Quest for Glory, and so they brought us back. But Corey was busy elsewhere, so it was all mostly me. And they wanted to do 3D. And so it was just crazy.
Yeah, I was actually in on some of the early meetings. We discussed with the system staff, and the question was, would Sierra's proprietary SCI language and system, did it, what was it too old and long in the tooth to work for a new game? And we decided that yeah, they needed to really go to a new engine. So I decided to do that in C++ and write stuff from scratch, but taking advantage of knowing how the old ones worked. Uh, they brought in a genius programmer, Eric Lengel, to lead the team, and He later went on to develop the C4 3D engine. So he basically wrote his own. He wrote two different 3D engines for Quest for Glory 5. First one was based on voxels, and that was all because I had gone to a meeting with some people from Russia that were showing off voxel technology. I said, "Wow, that looks amazing," and Eric said, "Oh yeah, I can do that." So he made us a voxel engine, and then we got 2 years into the project and discovered that everything looked beautiful, but it ran at about 2 frames per second.
Yeah,
Uh,
voxels are cool, but they're not good for everything.
yeah. Well, I think that if we had hired an outside engine, paid 100,000 or so for it, we probably could have gotten one that was being maintained and improved by somebody else and would have, may have been reasonable speed. But the in-house one, looked great, but it wasn't. The playability wasn't there. So we decided that we had to go to a standard polygon engine and said, okay, well, should we get on Unreal or something? And Eric said, no, no problem. I can write one. And he did. In the course of about 3 weeks, he proceeded to create his own um, 3D polygon engine. And that was what we used for the project. The problem with it was that all the art had been done with the assumption that the polygons were going to be turned into voxels, and so they had unlimited number of polygons to work with. They had no worries about speed or memory size or anything like that. And when we went to an actual polygon engine, all those things came into play, and we had to go like 100 polygons per character as opposed to the 10,000 they'd been doing. So everything became a little blocky, a little more primitive, and just unfortunately did not measure up to the games we had done before that in 2D. So it
Yeah.
was a unfortunate period where we got going into that transition to a new technology, and for a while games looked worse instead of better because of it.
Yeah, that was a lot of games doing that shift. You know, some other Sierra games like that are King's Quest, like mind. But um, anyway,
Yes,
like
they were King's Quest at the same time we were doing that up north. They were going to 3D with King's Quest, and they created their own 3D proprietary engine. And a different division of Sierra was doing Gabriel Knight, and lo and behold, they were doing their own 3D engine. So, it's everybody was inventing the wheel at the same time.
uh, things were different in the '90s, like it, because I do know, like at the AAA level, there's a lot more sharing of technology and engines and all that going on these days. Uh, versus,
More
well,
tools available,
yeah. Oh, what
but
a
it was the
mess.
Wild West. Effectively, it was always the Wild West whenever we were making games, because there was nobody, there were nobody was doing things like we did them, for better or
Yep,
worse.
this is true. Um, Blazing Trails has its costs, I suppose.
It does.
Like, I suppose it's not helping that from what I've been gathering, Sierra was a bit of a mess at the time. Again, not surprising.
So I noticed you have our latest
But
game up on the screen, Hero You Rogue to Redemption.
yeah,
And for a while, you had the diary up there that was kind of the log book where Sean takes notes on what he's done so far, so you can go look back and see what happened earlier in the game. And you had the list of tasks, which were basically inspired by World of Warcraft quests. So we have, in this game, we've taken a lot of the stuff we learned when we were doing Quest for Glory and said, okay, let's keep the same idea of combining role playing and adventure gaming, but let's also take advantage of things we've seen in other games going into the 2000s and 2010s.
right. You know, this is a good jumping off point. I suppose my first question in regards to Hero U here is why the rogue class?
It's funny because we actually were originally doing a wizard game. And we had a whole storyline of a series of events based around a female wizard character. Um, and uh, the problem was that we're setting this in it was originally in a high school, and then we moved it up to university level. And we said, wizard in a school, misfit. All of a sudden, we're feeling like we're copying Harry Potter, and we didn't want to feel like people to feel like it was a cheap Harry Potter clone. And in 2020 hindsight, that actually would have been a good thing. We would have loved to have had the Harry Potter audience glom onto it. But
Mm.
because we were trying to make a distinction, Lori came up with another story based around a rogue, and we said, okay, we'll do the rogue class first, and we'll do you know one class per game for the subsequent ones.
I guess to
So
some extent, a rogue is the class that has the least assumptions about what you're capable of anyway. So
Very popular. Let's face it, it's a lot of fun to play a rogue game when you actually could sneak around and do things. And that was always the idea, is to give the player, the opportunity to really do some stealth games if they wanted to.
Hmm. It's very versatile in those terms, like not just in terms of like stealth, but other thief skills. Like if you want to become, I suppose there are some skills you'll just naturally become acquainted with, like the lock picking skill and the listening skill more than others that you have to go out and build like your gambling skills. Um, but anyway, in terms of building an adventure game in the world of today, what's it like working with the Unity engine versus what you were doing with Quest for Glory?
it was a bit of a surprise to us. We expected that um, Unity, we had heard was, this great general purpose game engine, and it would be like the tools we had at Sierra with our SCI system there. And what we discovered is that Unity is pretty good for making 3D action games. Uh, and this game started out, we were going to make it 2D with tiled graphics. And we discovered that Unity really isn't good for that. So we had to build a major layer on top of Unity to support that, and it wasn't looking good. So we went to kind of a 2.5D with a mixture of 2D and 3D assets. And we ended up with, it is an isometric view, um, but we ended up with something that's really closer to 3D than 2D. Still has a few of the 2D assets in there. But yeah, it was a challenge to get those worked in. Whereas SCI was, designed specifically for 2D graphic adventure games, uh, and made it really easy to go from concept to on the screen. Um, if you wanted a background, it was a scene. So like right now, we see that Sean is walking through the Great Hall, and that is a single what we would have called a room in SCI, but it's huge. It scrolls for quite a ways, and there's a lot of stuff there, and you can interact with it at any point. So that's a much higher degree of sophistication. Um, there's a lot more to it, and yeah, this whole thing was a huge learning process about how to take the things where we didn't know how much we were coddled at Sierra using SCI. It really made things easy. And Unity, we had to have the team reinvent a lot of the things that we took for granted.
Hmm. I mean, given the choice, would you pick Unity again, or would you go with like for 3D Unreal or something like the adventure game engine, if I'm remembering um,
Yeah,
its
there's
name correctly?
one called AGS, I think, Adventure Game System, uh, and there was another one out of France called Visionaire, but I haven't heard anything about that. Originally, I had a number of people on our Kickstarter saying, "Oh, you should use Visionaire," and looked into it. Looked pretty good, but I think it's kind of faded. Um, but yeah, I mean, I love the way this game turned out. It's and obviously we can do better, but I think we did really, really well. and Unity, was quite suitable for getting this done. Uh, but it also became a very expensive project, much higher than our original budget to do this.
Mm.
So if we were doing this as a small indie effort now, like Lori and me doing most of the stuff ourselves, I'd probably use something like AGS because that lets you keep things simple. We
Yeah.
actually tried a prototype of this using Inform, which is a Infocom style text adventure system, and
Mhm.
just found that pretty cumbersome. And it didn't have much life to it. So, to us, it really game really needs to have the graphics and the sound to make everything work together. If you just have the text on the screen, you can tell a pretty good story, but it doesn't have the life and the interactivity to it. So yeah,
Fair
I'd
enough.
go with certainly we're working on a new game now called Summer Days at Hero U, Tilly's Tale. So we got the even more complicated title. And we're still using Unity for that. We're now using as an intermediary a language called Inkle, uh, and our Ink scripts are kind of a new
Yeah.
industry standard for text and graphics adventures.
Yeah, we,
And
we
Could
know
you
the
could you reuse any of the environmental design?
No, we went with a different approach. Instead of having a character run around in a 3D world, we went with stills. So each scene has its still background. It's a lot like the Sierra ones, where you had a single painted background for each scene, and
And
then
then
we have.
exits are north, south, east, west, and Dennis.
Well, no, it's all menu driven. So it's really it's like an interactive storybook. It's
Uh-huh.
more of a, it is an adventure game, but it's also a visual novel. And it's
Mhm.
a bit like, one of those old choose your adventure stories, uh, because you're going through the menu and you basically are having just as in Road to Redemption, you have conversations with characters where you have a menu come up that's a choice of things for you to say and so on. But then when you're done with that scene, it brings up a map and you click on the next place you want to go. So we don't bother showing you, walking or running down the corridors because, in a sense, it's really just filler.
Hmm.
So we like to think that we've sort of boiled down the essence of the adventure game and turned it into a interactive storybook.
Adventure game light. After a
Yeah,
major game that's took us 6 years to create, we wanted something easy to put together and to actually, get out to the public.
And by the time we've
well,
released it, this will be 3 years in the making. So it's lighter, but it's not light. Turns
that
out
sounds
it takes a long time to make a game and a lot of work.
that does sound like a game development.
Yeah, I
Trust me,
just
that is a story that comes up all the time on this program. Like, uh, anyway,
never
you
do
were saying?
anything simply. I never do, everything I do is very complicated. I can't just make a straight adventure game. I can't just make a straight role playing game. It's got to have elements of, both pushed into it, uh,
And simulation.
and I write my scripts for these games are absolutely huge.
Yeah, so for this game, we actually original plan was to make a game that you would choose your character at the beginning of either Tilly or Rafeo, and then play through the story. And by the time Lori got through the script just for Tilly's half of the game, it was a full game in its own right. And so we've actually split it. We're going to do two games: Tilly's Tale and Rafeo's Adventure. Um, and so that means that by the time we're done with this, it will actually have taken us as long to make Summer Days at Hero U as it took us to make Road to Redemption. So 3 years for the first game, and hopefully we'll get the next one done in 2 years, maybe a year. We've done all the principal artwork for it. Lori just has to write her head off.
I mean, that's some knock on wood stuff right there.
Yeah,
I
but we do plan to
suppose.
be out by the summer with Summer Days at Hero U, Tilly's Tale, and it's going to be a very fun game. It's very lighthearted, and we had already decided we're going to do that from the beginning. But especially after going through a year of worries about COVID-19 and the unrest with the Republicans versus the Democrats and everything else that's been going on for the last year. I think that a lighthearted, fun game, relaxing, cutesy style, and so on might be just the antidote that people need.
That is certainly understandable, and you know, well, we would like to talk about Summer Days more when it gets closer to its release dates, if that's possible. Um,
Oh,
in the
I had a
meantime,
question about Road to Redemption that I was going to ask you because it came up recently.
okay,
Is Cesare Sosi a reference to Kaiser Soze?
Of
Yes.
course.
Just as a
So
name?
yeah, Cesare we call him. Cesare Sosi is definitely a reference to Kaiser Sose.
Okay, I wasn't sure, but I figured it probably was.
Yep.
Thank you.
And in fact, Caesar and Kaiser, it's the same word. It's
Yeah,
different
it's
languages.
I think Kaiser Soze is supposed to be Turkish or something, and his name is pretty much
I
Italian.
know.
So
Yeah. But
Well,
then
look,
it makes sense in terms of the movie, the usual suspects. But
yeah,
yes,
that film, you never actually know if he actually exists anyway. Uh, so,
mhm,
so here he clearly exists, and he's clearly an antagonist from the beginning of the story. Is he
uh-huh.
a villain? Well, sort of and sort of not.
I
Um,
noticed you can make him like you, but it requires making pretty much everyone else not like you.
yeah,
yep. Well, if you've done that, congratulations. That's pretty awesome. That's hard.
yes. The whole
But Cesare will return in future games. He has a major backstory that comes into the plots of other games in the proposed Hero U series, and so we're just kind of putting the teaser for him in the first game.
Okay.
Our plan initially was to do, as I said, that we're going to do the wizard game first, but we wound up doing the rogue game first. But then our next game would be the wizard game in the Hero U series, and then we would do all of the character classes, a warrior game and a paladin game. So that was our
hmm,
intention back when we thought we'd actually make money at this industry.
Well, also back when we thought we could make a game in a year and a half or 2 years.
Yeah.
And part of the thing is, that we have other interests. We're not we're not 20 or 30 years old anymore, and uh, we're not quite as into working 12-hour days and 70-hour weeks as we used to be. Um, so it turns out that actually makes a difference in how much you get done. We hated, we thought at the time it was stupid. They were, overworking us for no reason. Uh, but we were there in the office mostly not because anyone was telling us to be there, but because there was always more to do. And now that we don't have a company structure behind us, and we have to, scrape and save to pay people. It stretches out the process a lot. So if we had a sugar daddy that wanted to come through and fund the company, then we'd hire 3 times the team size and probably take just as long to get the games done realistically.
That does seem to be how it works.
Yeah, I'm afraid so. But they'd be really, really sophisticated. We would use that those man hours.
I mean, in all fairness, it's kind of a buyer's market right now. Like, you know, I'm reading daily about company X being acquired by company Y. You um, so I guess that is a possibility for the future.
Yeah, it sort of,
Um,
it certainly
should
makes
you
sense.
desire it.
The problem we actually had someone who wanted to acquire us at one point, and he basically asked about, what are our sales numbers so far, and we told him, and he said, "Oh, okay, no thanks." And they don't really care about what the games are. What they care about is, uh, can they buy you and immediately make money from it? And that's perfectly reasonable. No company was in business to lose money. Uh, but what we know about game expertise, we lack in marketing expertise. So it's very hard to get noticed these days.
That is Yeah, it's a crowded marketplace. I mean, I will. Yeah,
Yeah,
there are.
the nice thing about tools like AGS and Unity and so on is that anybody can make a game, and many people do, and it is very hard for people to distinguish uh, between which are the quality ones. So we like to believe that we're one of the quality games, but we've also had to cut some corners because of budget. So it's up to players to tell their friends about the game and get more people interested. And
I mean, we do it.
if that turns into cash flow for us, we'll make more games.
hmm I suppose we'll end the line of questioning a bit on the Nintendo Switch version of Hero U, since that's the version that just came out a couple weeks ago. I suppose my first question there is, what made the Nintendo Switch the particular console platform of choice for you?
Well, it's got the Switch is an awesome machine. It's got it looks really great on the handheld mode. It's the screen is small, but it's big enough to play games like this. So if we looked at like iOS or Android and phone games, phones are really too small to play a game with this much text on it, and these rich, sophisticated pictures. That's too small a screen. And then Switch, of course, then can be docked and hooked up to a TV set, and then you've got a really nice screen to play it on. Uh, it's got both the touchscreen interface and the joypad. It's not, our game unfortunately was designed for primarily for mouse use, and joypad is not the ideal way to simulate a mouse. Uh, so there are some, it's a little bit more cumbersome to play on the Switch than the PC, but it's just a really nice console to work on. We could have perhaps gone to something like the Xbox or PlayStation, but we have no expertise whatsoever into how to get into that market, or for that matter, and how to use those consoles. So, uh,
Starting out, the Switch was, the most popular game platform that was new. Everybody was buying up Switch games. It was a great open market, and by the time our game came out, well, it was all stuck.
actually, Switch continues to do very well. It's just that it's now getting into the PC problem of getting more saturation of games. But
Yeah.
it's still it's still a really interesting machine. And I was actually approached by two different companies on the same day that said we want to take your game to the Switch. And as it happens, I went with the first one we talked to, but I'm very pleased with that. Silesia Games out of Poland. And they did all the conversion to the Switch, and they've been working with us on fixing problems and so on. Um, and we're very happy with the relationship. So they've done a very good job in the Switch version of the game. So
Well, that's good.
it was kind of a no-brainer for us to do that, since when another company comes in and says we won't charge anything up front, we'll just take a percentage later on, and we'll do everything. So said okay.
Sounds like a pretty reasonable deal. Like, um,
And
and
hopefully the game will be successful, and we'll make a profit for both them and us.
I mean, yeah, a lot of games have done really, really, really well. Switch. Hopefully
I know
yours
Ron
is one of them.
Gilbert's Thimbleweed Park has done fantastically on the Switch.
It's good. Like, Thimbleweed Park deserves it. It's a good
Mhm.
adventure game. Like, um, anyway, I'll see if there are any final questions at this juncture from my colleagues here.
I think I'm good.
I
I'm
got
good.
I got my main one.
Okay. All right then. I
Let
want to
me
thank you
riff
both.
off that for just a second. The Cesare Sosing Kaiser Sose is that is throughout all of our games. All the Quest for Glory games and Hero U and everything we've done has had vast
Uh-huh.
number of pop culture references, ancient history references, and stuff that we do not expect any player to get every single reference. In
Mhm.
fact, we don't even get all of our own references because Lori writes some of them and I write some of them, and
Insert
we had
joke about that's what wikis are for.
yeah, yeah. It's also everything. It's basically if you watch Gilligan's Island and Get Smart and read the Odyssey and the Iliad, then you'll start to get the references for our games. But
Yeah,
it's
there were
it's
definitely
everything.
some other ones that I got, but that one I wasn't sure about.
Yep, yep. There's a whole large section. Quest for Glory 2 has a lot of references back to the film Casablanca and to the Maltese Falcon. And that actually came about because one of our artists on the original Heroes Quest, we told him to put a bunch of treasure in the treasure room at the end of the game, and one of the pieces of treasure he put in there was the Maltese Falcon. And so Lori immediately proceeded to write the Blackbird, as she called it, into the script for all the subsequent games and make it a major plot point for Thieves.
Hmm.
And of course, once we had that in there and we're on Humphrey Bogart, then it made sense to bring the whole Casablanca thing into the game that was set in the Mediterranean. Um, yeah. So yeah, it just all ties together for
Indeed.
North Africa.
All right. So on that note, I want to thank you both for taking time out of your schedule and joining us here tonight. I know I enjoyed Hero U when we were doing the review for it, and we look forward to seeing what transpires with Summer Days, and hopefully we'll have you back on the program when that is close to release.
Yep.
But in the meantime, uh, Hero U Road to Redemption is currently available on Steam and the Nintendo Switch for $29.99. Be sure to pick it up on your platform of choice
It's
today.
1999 on the Switch version.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, $20. There was a joke in Secret of Monkey Island that says never pay more than $20 for an adventure game, and a lot of people have taken that to heart. So we kept it under $20 for the Switch version.
Fair enough. Anyway, Petty, play us to the next segment. All right, so welcome to the topic of discussion for the week. This time we are talking about Pokemon. Specifically, the Pokemon Present happened last week. So we got a new trailer for new Pokemon Snap. You know, it looks like a new Pokemon Snap game. We talked about Pokemon Snap, when that game was announced. So we're going to get right to the meat and potatoes of that present, and that's the Sinnoh region. Because not so surprisingly, we got the Diamond and Pearl remix that were anticipated. Not so anticipated was the new Sinnoh region game. The Pokemon, what was it, Archeon?
Arceus.
Arceus is the official pronunciation that I refuse to use because it's Arceus in Japanese.
Yeah.
I'll show you an Arceus.
Presumably, this name was edited because they didn't want to have arse in it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway, this is a Pokemon subject, so have at it, folks.
So a lot of people are bitching about getting a aesthetically faithful Diamond and Pearl remakes, and not like actually platinum remakes, which is what they really wanted. Which there's at least the NPC that gives you the flower to transform Shaman, so we'll see about that.
I mean, we didn't get remakes of Pokemon Crystal or Pokemon Emerald either. So
yeah, though they
they
do tend to include some of the updates from that, and they probably will this time too. But it's not.
Right.
See, I think a lot of people always had like in their heads what the remake would be, and it's not that. particularly because this is the first time they've tried to capture pretty much the exact same aesthetic except in 3D,
Mm-hmm.
which I'm fine with, but a lot of people seem to have issues with. I guess there are also some complaints about the lighting, which
Oh yeah, the lighting looks. Oh
I'm
god,
not great at judging that. Petty, you're kind of quiet there.
better.
No.
Oh, fun.
Hmm.
How about now?
Okay, that's a bit better, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I will say I'm not a fan of the lighting and the models in general, but that's just aesthetic thing on my end.
Yeah, but have you seen what they looked like on the DS?
To be fair, I wasn't very into Gen 4 regardless, so
That's fair. Gen 3 is the one I skipped, so 4 was a huge step forward. But can you at least acknowledge that if you look at the Gen 4 sprites and look at the models for this, they look pretty much the same?
kind of.
Yeah, personally, I have no issue with the visuals of this remakes.
Mhm.
It's not a problem to me. Like Alex was saying, it's faithful to the original enough. Just everyone wants it to be like these remakes to be more like Sword and Shield, basically.
Uh-huh. And that's not to say that the Pokemon game isn't like
I
Baby
mean-
Muriel from that one episode of friggin' Courage the Cowardly Dog. Uh,
That's a
time.
reference.
Um,
I'm
yes, Adam.
I think he's having
So-
connection issues.
the other big can you
Not very well. You seem to keep dropping. I think what Adam might be being to say is that this is the first one that's being done by a third party.
I'm going to move the
Yeah,
server real quick.
the
Yeah, Adam, you're out more than you're in. I don't know what happened.
Is everybody else still here?
I'm
I'm
still
here.
Fun.
So there are pluses and minuses to this because, on one hand, Game Freak has certainly shown that they can heck things up pretty good. But on the other hand, a third party might treat some things that would be better off changed with kid gloves for the sake of not changing it, which is a minor concern. So I'm anxiously looking forward to see what kinds of changes and updates they make. For example, I think it's, even though Masuda is working on this, I think it's significantly less likely that we will, for example, get Sinnoh region variations of newer Pokemon that weren't in the first 4 gens, because that was something that I would always thought would be cool. Or, for example, that they will include a wild area type place, or a I don't know, they might do something with raids just for co-op compatibility or something, but I don't know. I'm vaguely curious. I do have a minor hope that they will at least give you a chance to change into the platinum outfits at some point, because those are a fairly minor change that would be an easy swap, and you already change clothes for the contests if they include those. And it would be neat to be able to wear warmer clothes when you go into the 2.5 goddamn snow routes. Because both Don and Lucas are going to be freezing their asses off in a short skirt and a vest, sleeveless vest. Although, while Lucas's platinum outfit fixes this, Dawn gets a coat, but her skirt's still pretty darn short. But
Because
whatever.
Japan.
Hmm.
Apparently, legs don't need to be warm.
can you all hear me?
Yes.
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 Okay, good. Connection
But-
issues seem to be done.
Okay.
Anyway,
But yeah, while Gen
as
4
I-
include, sorry.
as I was saying, yeah, this game is being developed by a outfit called Ilka, which is I Love Computer Art. Um, they've got a pretty extensive support studio resume. Like they did work on Yakuza 0, Ace Combat 7, Nier Automata, Metal Gear Rising Revengeance. More recently, they worked on Dragon Quest 11S. And in regards to Pokemon, they were chosen partially because they are the co-developer on Pokemon Home, the cloud-based storage system.
Hmm.
You know, because there have been a number of Pokemon spin-off developers. In fact, Creatures just back in October absorbed one of them in Umbrella. They're the ones who made the Pokemon Rumble series and the Pokemon communicator games. Hey You Pikachu and Pokemon Channel.
Oh God,
Um,
those existed.
yes, they did. Doing voice
Well, I mean,
recognition
the
software.
introduction of this anniversary video reminded you of practically every Pokemon property or product that had ever been created. So
Yeah, that's fair.
I think they didn't mention the Pikachu ice cream pops that you could get from your Good Humor Man when he still existed. The ones where they always had the eyeballs drifted down into the cheek or whatever.
Okay, in all fairness, if they had to mention every single Pokemon bits of merchandise, that would have been fucking 4
I'm
hours
just
long.
joking that's like the only thing they didn't mention.
Oh, anyway. But yeah, Pokemon Sinnoh region isn't the only Pokemon Sinnoh region game going on here because, well, Pokemon Legends is probably because the remakes got announced. They decided, let's do this open world exploration game.
Yeah, I'm kind of halfway here looking at wondering if they're like gonna weigh the performance of these two things to see what direction they're going to go primarily with in the future.
Yeah,
That's a
and keep in mind, Game Freak is working on the Pokemon Legends game.
Hmm. I did have one last thing to say about BDSP. Two last things, but one of them was just a joke.
Go ahead.
Sorry. So the first thing is that while Gen 4 had a lot of huge improvements from previous ones, I am going to have to see what they're doing, what they're including for improvements and quality of life things, because there have also been even more improvements since then. And it would be really rough to go back because that was a generation that was the absolute worst for you having to take like 2 of your party slots exclusively for people to do HMs and some weird routing stuff. And we'll have to see how the underground updates. And the second thing is that I cannot say BDSP without imagining something that ends in the word sadomasochism.
Again, understandable.
Anyway, on to Legends now, unless somebody else has something.
Yeah, I mean, Legends definitely seems ambitious. Like maybe the most ambitious a Pokemon game has gotten in a good long while. I know technically speaking, Sword and Shield are ambitious and advanced for mainline Pokemon games, but let's be honest, more than a fair share of people were disappointed in the production values of the latest Pokemon game because, well, here's the thing: like Creatures and Game Freak, they're still, even though like Pokemon is like the biggest franchise in the world, the actual developers on the mainline Pokemon games aren't up to scale for what we consider to be triple A gaming of the modern age. Even the Switch level, like there's no getting around the fact that Game Freak and Creatures, they are still very clearly geared towards 3D that works on a 3DS rather than a Nintendo Switch, because their big advancement was, oh hey, you can fully move the camera now, which I guess is impressive for a Pokemon game, but not really impressive for 3D gaming in general, because we've been able to do that for fucking ever.
Mm-hmm.
And
Sorry, I
um
accidentally clicked play on a thing.
live broadcasting.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so that's where the frustration comes from. It's like when people were thinking of the first mainline console Pokemon game, they were thinking something like, say, Pokemon Coliseum, only with modern day shiny HD graphics. And what we got in terms of Pokemon Sword and Shield was mostly a bit better on the 3DS end of things.
Mm-hmm.
And that is understandable given the actual capacity of Game Freak. But this is what the fan base's expectations are. Though I think Pokemon Legends is playing to what Game Freak's actual strengths are a lot better, because they're going with an open world game, and like a fully open world thing here. We don't exactly know how big it is, but it does seem to be bigger than what we've gotten. And we do need to see more of Legends before more assumptions can be made.
Yeah, a lot
But
of people have just expressed concerns about certain things like frame rate and certain things about the
right,
combat system, but also we really haven't seen much of it. And it'll
Mm-hmm.
certainly
yeah,
be interesting to see stuff earlier in the game
yeah.
or earlier in
Also,
time.
yeah. Also, just because you have fields in your game doesn't mean it's a Breath of the Wild homage.
Oh
May,
Lord.
yeah, yeah. It's like maybe closer here because Nintendo's connected in a fashion, but
Mm-hmm.
no,
Yeah,
like
this probably looks similar to something doesn't mean to outright call out to it.
I mean, it does look more. It is described as being more of a less civilized area than previous Pokemon games, and you do have some interesting movements tech available, but it's not going to be full Breath of the Wild. No, I don't imagine.
No.
yeah. I'm like, details are still a bit scarce on this thing. But yeah, it's basically what if Pokemon in the Sengoku Jedi time, Jedi.
Hmm.
Um, you know, it,
I think it's
it's like,
actually a bit later than that, but yeah.
okay, let's say mid Tokugawa era. You know, the point is, it's Pokemon in samurai time. It's just samurai times is a goddamn 1,000 years.
Uh huh.
Apparently they found a way to make Pokeballs before electricity was discovered. Um, however that fucking works.
I
Like,
mean, they canonically have been made from a while. It just involved carving apricorns, and apparently these ones have some kind of steam in them. So I don't fucking know.
yeah.
Uh,
Uh, so I guess make that Meiji Restoration era.
Hmm.
Yeah. But yeah. It's just hard to know what to make of Pokemon Legends, because what we got here is basically a Pokemon spin-off game, but it's being handled by the main development teams of Pokemon.
Uh huh.
You know, so that's it's, when you think of it, a pretty incredible reversal going on here. What would be considered the mainline game remake that it is being handled by a outside studio from the main trifecta, Nintendo's creatures, Game Freak, and they're working on this new spin-off prequel thing. So it's at least an interesting shift.
It'll
And
also
then-
be interesting to see how whatever organization is using a Team Galactic logo, but with the kanji for silver, which also is the first kanji in the Japanese word for galaxy for a logo, is up to.
Indeed. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, Pokemon. What is it? Trying to remember the remake names. Like,
Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl.
yeah, they're supposed to be out fall of this year, and Pokemon Legends is coming 2022. So we'll probably have more discussion on that when the games are actually out, or maybe when more is revealed. We'll see.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, and Pokemon is just not my wheelhouse. Never has been. So they'll carry the conversation. Anyway, so that'll about do it for this topic of discussion, and indeed that'll about do it for this installment of Fragments of Silicon. As always, we got a new episode of Last News Desk on the Left happening in about 15 minutes. But as far as this show goes, no Friday show this week, but that is returning next week. And on the Sunday reviews, we'll be reviewing Viola, the Heroine's Melody. So it's not voila, it's actually the viola, which is the instrument. This is a, quote unquote musical platform RPG. Now, when we say musical, we mean rhythm based, and by rhythm based, we mean the attacks and the spells and everything are timed hits. More on that on Sunday. We got Vera Blank, Ghost in the Castle for the Nintendo Switch. This is the second game in the Vera Blank series, of which there are 2 games. I will say 2 games does constitute a series, so as usual, I like to split game properties up in order to prevent repetition. So the Golics got the sequel here. We got Balance a Lot for PlayStation 4. What if King Arthur, but physics platformer? It's in the name. You are balancing Lancelot. And we got Grow Big or Grow Home, which is, if I'm remembering correctly, a garden simulator.
Kind of, sort of.
It's not my game, so my knowledge is a bit dim versus what I've been focusing on. Anyway, so that's the schedule coming up. So, until either you join us for Last News Desk or for the Sunday reviews, I shall wish you good gaming.